Let us begin by acknowledging that this evening we gather on the lands of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people, to whom we pay our deepest respects, in particular their elders, past, present, and emerging. My name is Thomas Nelly Valdez, and I'm a lecturer in Spanish Studies program here at the ANU, and I'm also secretary of AILASA, the Association of Iberian and Latin American Studies of Australasia. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of AILASA to this very special event, a conversation with Mariana Enriquez. In part, we're very proud to say, of the Latin American Week festivities organized by the Latin American Students Association here at the ANU. AILASA was formed in 1993 with the mission to promote research and teaching of Iberian and Latin American studies in Australasia, as well as to promote public interest and exchange between our regions. That is partly why we are here tonight. On behalf of AILASA, I would like to thank the College of Arts and Social Sciences, especially the Comms and Marketing team, for recording this event, as well as the team at Harry Hartog for graciously hosting us this evening. This evening's proceedings will commence with a conversation between Mariana Enriquez and my colleague Fabricio Tocco, followed by an audience Q&A, in which you will be able to ask your questions to our very special guest author. After the close of the event at 7 p.m, there will be a book signing downstairs with Mariana until 7:30. Our moderator this evening is Dr. Fabricio Tocco, an Argentinian-Brazilian writer, musician, and lecturer at the ANU. He is the author of the novels Parece Diciembre, published this year, and two academic books, Latin American Detectives Against Power and Precarious Secrets, the first one winning the International Crime Fiction Book Prize in 2022. This last monograph inspired the documentary Secretos Precarios, which will be appearing on SBS On Demand at the end of this year. He is currently president of the Association of Iberian and Latin American Studies of Australasia. Our special guest author this evening is Mariana Enriquez, an award-winning novelist and short story writer from Argentina, whose works have been translated into over 20 languages. Known for her gothic and macabre stories, interspersed with incisive social critique, Enriquez's style is often likened to Stephen King or Margaret Atwood. Their short story collection, The Dangers of Smoking in Bed, was shortlisted for the International Book Prize, and in Nuestra Parte de Noche, translated into English as Our Share of the Night, won the Herralde Prize of Literature in 2019, which is one of the most prestigious prizes and literary prizes in the Spanish-speaking world. Her latest collection of stories is A Sunny Place for Shady People, translated into English and published by Granta last year. She is considered one of the most important contemporary Latin American writers today, and it is an absolute honor to have you with us. Please put your hands together to welcome Mariana and Fabricio.
Thank you, Tomas. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. So I'm sure that most of you here know how much Mariana's writing is very keen on a type of genre called body horror. And A Sunny Place for Shady People, for example, is crowded with, if you haven't read it yet, shop assistants injured by sinister vintage clothes, a middle-aged woman who welcomes back her extirpated tumor to wear it as a hump. And of course we have Julie, a morbidly obese gringa, who has the best sex of her life with ghosts. And this prominence of the body is already central in earlier short stories by Mariana, such as in books like Things We Lost in the Fire or Dangers of Smoking in Bed. Or we get women who willingly burn themselves to make a political point, teenage girls who maim themselves, girls filled with scars that look like maps, women who become infatuated with skulls, and so on. So the question, Mariana, is what's with the body? What captivates you so much about it, and what's at stake in the body that you and us, all of us as your readers, keep going back for more?
Okay, this will be fun. First, thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much you, Fabricio, and Tomas for organizing, and Maximo for being here, and everybody. Well, the body is all we have, isn't it? So when you're thinking about horror, when you're writing about horror, you realize that most of the horror comes from the body. the body is very vulnerable, is very bad design. No, it is. It's very bad design. Like anything can kill you. It shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like this, what falls on your head and kills you. It should be auto repair itself easier. So it's very fragile. It doesn't work for a long time. Like it's less than 100 years and it's done, and very done at 100 years. And it changes a lot. And it not only changes because it has to change with age, with disease, with desire, but it also changed because not even getting into very, very, very serious stuff, but also in the social impositions that we get. It gets changed all the time. You're talking about someone like Julie that is morbidly obese. She has a lot of joy with her ghost lovers, but the thing is, in time, that story for me, for example, I wrote it when the body that is morbidly obese wasn't going to be a body that was going to disappear because of drugs that will make that shape of the human body disappear. Or a sign that you can't afford the medicine or a sign of rebellion. Like I can think in 10 years or something, someone will say, okay, I'm not going to use Ozempic, so I'm going because I want to be against. And you can write a sci-fi article about that. A lot of people that refuse to do the drugs, so people can identify that these are the people that are resisting something. So that is also a very sociocultural thing that is going on, and is going on with our body. Our body is constantly producing narrative and fear. So that's what it is, really. When I started to think, what should be my subject in horror, I didn't even have to think. It just happened.
That's a wonderful segue for the next question, which is about fear.
Was it?
So the sunny place for shady people that we see in the title seems to allude to Los Angeles, in particular, a city that, as we know, you're very fond of, and that serves as the setting of the short story of the same name. But I think that, in a way, the title also describes your fiction more broadly. The word shady, for example, seems to have at least two meanings. The more literal, that alludes to people who are shady, sketchy, dodgy, who operate in the dark side of society. But also shady evokes the opposite of bodies, the lack of bodies, the disembodied shadows that won't leave us alone, the invisible ghosts that are constantly haunting us. In short, the monster, typical horror stories. And I wanted to ask you about fear. What fascinates you about fear, and what effects do you seek in your readers through fear?
Yeah. The title was, I was thinking also about writing this kind of fiction, this kind of dark fiction from a place and from also a language that is not the usual. In Spanish, you don't have that much of dark, fantastic fiction or horror fiction. I separate it because horror fiction most of the time doesn't need to be fantastic. Like Edgar Allan Poe, all his stories are quite realistic. Like he gets obsessed with a woman, kills it. And it's very rare that it's more about how crazy he is than something supernatural going on. And Latin America in general is associated with sun. And with that kind of image. So, and it's true. The horror that I write happens a lot in the summer. It happens in the sun. It happens in the open air. It doesn't happen in the shadows, let's say. And I think that's because I gravitate a lot towards horror that is very visible. I think to me, fear in general, it's something. First, I'm interested in fear in the psychological sense. I'm interested in how prevalent fear is now for us. First, in a psychological sense, I don't know, in anxiety, panic attacks, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's very prevalent now. Then socially, fear is terribly prevalent too. Like, we fear the neighbors, we fear the foreigners, we fear the this, we fear the... And then in horror fiction, I'm very interested in fear as a form of, or horror as a form of trauma, as something that comes back and you can't get rid of. That's the shadow that you are kind of alluding. I mean, if you think about ghosts, if you think about dark things, trauma in the most basic sense and the historic sense always kind of acts like a ghost. A ghost is something from the past that is acting in the present. And trauma is that too. Trauma is something that happened in the past, but suddenly is present again. And history is the same. Narratives of politics that used to be and used to function or used to be good or you want and don't, and they come back. And fears and rages and hatred that are historical and that are from the past but are still happening now and are real now, though they don't really exist, they are ghosts. So that's kind of the fear that I'm operating with. And it sounds really, in a way, it sounds really intellectual, but if you think about horror movies, like the most, I don't know, popular pop horror movie, like, I don't know, Freddy and the Nightmare on Elm Street. If you think about it, that's a guy that was abusing and killing children. The parents of, not the children killed, but of the other children that they feared that this one man was going to attack, kill him, and then he haunts the children that are still alive, the teenagers that are still alive in their dreams. So basically, Nightmare on Elm Street is 100% a movie about childhood trauma and child abuse. That's how dark it is. And we have it in, I have pins of Freddy. I have the pullover of Freddy with them. I don't think about, you don't really think about what you're doing. Like, what is this? This is someone that comes in your dreams. And if you think about the movie again, like the first movie especially, there's a scene where the protagonist doesn't want to sleep. And she's in the water, taking a bath. And it's a warm bath, so she kind of feels sleepy. And you can see the hand of Freddy coming between her legs. It can be more obvious. It can be more, you know. But that takes a second or third reading. And that's what I try to do with the kind of horror that I write about. But that's how fear operates. Fear, it doesn't let you go.
And sometimes quite literally true, right? Because you were saying it comes from the past and sometimes even from past generations that are actually dead, and intergenerational trauma comes back to the present, right?
Yeah. Well, in Argentina it's very, I mean, I don't think it's particular for our country, but we have generations and generations of, my generation especially, I was born in the 70s, and in the 70s was the I would say the last dictatorship, because it will be the last dictatorship, but my parents they had political problems, but they weren't in jail, they weren't killed, nothing. But that's the generation that were killed and disappeared. So all of us are a bit orphans of that generation. And at the same time, it's like an impossible, like every father that has died in tragic circumstances is absolutely impossible to be at the same level as they are. So you're always not only an orphan, but you're always not good enough in every sense. And so that's something that really operates like a ghost. And as you grow up, and you go, for example, to political or human rights manifestations in the street and stuff, you can see the faces of the people that were killed. When I was young, they were a bit older than me, and now they could be my kids. So that's a ghost.
I'd like to bring back something you said in Toronto when you were interviewed by Alejandro Seufer, a colleague and a friend who I thank for making this possible. He said back then, "La realidad está rota, reality is broken." Basically arguing that it doesn't make much sense to write with a realist aesthetics if reality is broken. So would you say is writing about the supernatural a way of repairing reality, or of better understanding reality, or of breaking reality even further?
I think it's a way, for me, it's a way of trying to make sense of it. I think I'm making the noise, I don't know. Because when I started to write horror in the early 2000s, I dare say that reality wasn't as broken as now. In 2004, when I started writing horror, I could tell if something that I saw on my phone was real or not real. Now I can't tell anymore. And that's very scary. I can't tell. And for a while I thought, well, other people will be fooled, but not me, because I'm smart. And it's over. I'm fooled on a daily basis. And it's not just images, it's what it's said, what they show you, the absolutely lack of mercy of the robot, of the algorithm, that also asks you to react to things that you don't know if they're real or not. And that kind of produces, at least for me, like a psychological effect that makes me try to reaffirm that that is true only because I expose myself saying that is true. And it's very difficult for all of us saying, no, I made a mistake. And this is a reality that, and that's, I think, how things escalate. For me, when I started writing horror, I loved the narratives of horror that said, the reality that we are here is a convention in which we operate, but there's another reality that if you break the wall with magic, with the contacts with the supernatural, with, I don't know, the use of machines, from the Matrix to Lovecraft, let's say the whole spectrum of I'm more sophisticated too, Philip Dick, Ubik, etc. You go to that other reality and you see how things are, and not this kind of convention that then we accept. But now that feels very like reality to me. Like it could, maybe. And maybe this is a glitch. And so to me now, writing about the supernatural, all the things that are not real, are, this is going to sound like I'm playing with words, but it's really realistic because it's very confusing. And also what I think that we should keep in mind all the time as artists, as writers, let's say, this is just starting. This is infancy. Now we have how long have we had the internet at home? 95? 96? It's nothing. Like it's someone that was born is 27, someone that was born is still a kid. So this is, if we are so confused in this infancy, this is going to be very hard. And so, yeah.
She might get to puberty.
No.
I think there might be a ghost in my microphone. So,
Don't worry.
I'd like to ask you about how much do you censor your own writing? I'm thinking here of a story like No Birthdays or Baptisms, an earlier short story that Mariana published in The Dangers of, smoking in bed.
Do you want me to give you mine?
Maybe we should do that. Yeah, that's a very clever solution. I want to ask you about censorship. How much do you censor yourself? And I'm thinking about this story, No Birthdays or Baptisms. I hear that earlier versions of these stories that you read in public readings in Buenos Aires were even more extreme than the published version, which is already quite extreme. And connected to self-censorship, do you think that horror stories or more broadly literature should have boundaries or not?
I don't censor myself. That was a mistake to cut that part. An editor suggested it because he thought that it was going too far, and I think he was wrong. But I did it because it was my first book of short stories and my first book of 4 short stories. It was just a paragraph.
Okay.
And yeah, because for the ones that didn't read it, it's a very kind of simple story. This is still analog times, and it is a guy that gets hired to film stuff with the, it could be very gentle stuff, like a woman that can't go out of her house and wants to see the neighborhood. She's agoraphobic, she can't leave the house, so he films the surroundings for her and has a video. Or it could be like, more kind of sick stuff. But one of the things that was in that story was a mother that had to take her dead daughter from the grave. As you know, I don't know if it's that the case in cemeteries here, but in cemeteries in Latin America, you can only be in the ground for, I don't know, 10 years or something like that, and then it's your time. They dig you up and you go to the mass grave, or you get cremated because there's no room. So the mother wanted that filmed. And it was very explicit, like they were cleaning the bones and everything. But I think it was kind of cute. And
Yeah, they totally agree.
well, it's a mother, it's a love thing. I don't know. But he thought it was awful, and I took it, and it was a mistake. But it lives. I read it sometimes, as it's supposed to be. But I don't think I think the only censorship that we should have, it's what we can't pull off technically and literally, let's say. The rest is up to the reader to say, I don't like this and I don't want to read this. That's something that an artist, a writer, a filmmaker, you don't have to think about that in those terms, because if you start to think, oh, this is going too far, this is going to be offensive for who? This is fiction. You should think you're going far in real life. Fiction, fiction to me is total freedom. And then it's total freedom for the reader to nobody is inflicting fiction on anybody. If you don't want to read certain kind of fiction, you don't want to read certain kind of fiction. I also disagree with the trigger warnings and stuff. It's like, what triggers me, it's what are they going to put in the cover of a book for someone like me? Stupid stuff. Nonsense. Conspiracy theories. No, everybody gets, and I really get upset with that. I cannot sleep with something like that. But I don't get that either, because to me it's infantilizing readers and infantilizing people, and I think that that is censorship in the name of taking care of you. And I don't think adult people should be taken care of that way. I think adult people should be taken care of as adult people by the state, giving them, I don't know, the proper health, the proper roads, the proper education and stuff. In short, the proper tools to deal with fiction. There is the world of imagination and the world also where we discuss the culture that is around us and our reality, to give them the tools to deal with that, or not to deal with that if they don't want to. But to me, it's a trap. It's something very, it's when people say, I'm doing it for your own good, and then they are basically not letting you live. And that, I don't know, I don't think there should be. When I say don't go there, it's because I can't write it. It's going to be bad.
So I'll ask a last question, and then we'll open up for questions from the audience. So Mariana, as you may know, she's a very cultured Anglophile. She knows by heart the Anglo-American horror and Gothic traditions, and as well as Nick Cave's entire discography, among many other things. And I wanted to ask you, now that you're living here in Australia, have you considered writing in English as other Latin American authors have been doing, for instance, Valeria Luiselli or Benjamin Labatut? Or is your relationship with literary writing inseparable from Spanish?
No, I'm not, as you can see, I'm not that good in English, and I don't want to write in English. I want to write in Spanish. It's my language, it's the way I express myself. It's also the genre that I write in is very personal in a way, and I don't find the words, and the opposite. There's words in English that, for example, would be very useful if they existed in Spanish, but in my genre, but they don't. Like haunting, for example. We don't have haunting. We have lots of things that are like haunting, but are not. Embrujado is like bewitched. No. Encantado is enchanted. No. We don't have a word that means place where ghosts go or place that has ghosts. And so in the language is the difficulty that I also want. And no, maybe I could maybe I could use some. I live in Tasmania, so there's material. So material, maybe, but always going to be someone from South America looking at this and saying, what is going on? Yeah.
Okay, so, and yeah, does anyone have any questions for Mariana? That one?
Hello, hi. Thank you very much. I am very excited to be talking to you tonight because I've read all of your books since they've pretty much come out.
Wow.
So I got on that bandwagon early because I've always been someone who's loved dark Gothic fiction. And but when they started coming out, I was still in high school. So when I was in high school, I was like, God, this is so angsty and I love this and this represents me. And as I've sort of grown up into my early 20s, the books I feel have also grown with me, where I sort of, I read A Sunny Place to Shady People as soon as it came out as well. And I can also say that I don't get scared reading fiction or watching anything anymore, but there's a story in there about the black-eyed children that absolutely, oh God, that scared the shit out of me. I was so scared. But I guess I just wanted to ask you, from your perspective, someone like myself who is 20-year-old white Australian woman, I'm from country New South Wales. How do you feel about someone like myself, I guess, reading your work and just really kind of, I would say, identifying with it? I absolutely love the rage and I think of your stories as incredibly delicious. Like, no matter how dark or gruesome they are, they still have such a human connection. And I would also say that as a woman, I feel a connection to that. Like when I read Julie having sex with a ghost, I was like, good for her. Yeah. She's happy. And I just find that no matter what the story is about, I always find myself absolutely just besotted with it, really enjoying it. So I just want to know what you think of that.
Well, first, thank you very much. I really am really flattered, And I love, that's literature. That's someone that comes from a background that is very different from mine, and that is an age that is very different from mine, can relate to that. Of course. I mean, I think something that is very amazing about dark fiction in general, and if you're a fan of dark fiction and stuff, is that it's very universal. Because the things that we touch are very humane things. And yeah, and I also find, I always find dark fiction fun, delicious. I really, people ask me sometimes, do you get scared when you're writing? I say, oh my God, no, of course not. It's like writing, if it's like in a romance novel when you're in love. It's ridiculous. It's going to be absolutely cheesy. And so you have to have that. So no, I think it's amazing. Sometimes I worry that I won't connect with certain people, which happens because it's literature. You don't have to connect with everybody. But sometimes I think some things are very local. Like in Black Eyed Kids, for example, that story, I had to write it because I heard that it's an urban legend. And I heard the urban legend. I really like listening to, podcasts and people talking about their experiences with ghosts and things like that, because I think the horror story is a very oral and like the community fiction, oral thing that it's like something like I would tell you, you have no idea what just happened to me. And you know that that's going to come. And like humor, it doesn't need that much of an introduction. If it works, it works. You don't need anything else. And I remember listening to that story, someone telling that story at night in my room. And it was the first time I was scared in ages, like really scared. Like I'm not going, if someone knocks the door, I'm not going to go. Like, not tonight, but tomorrow, no. Like, let some days pass, and I had it there. But of course, that the kids appear in amongst people that live in the streets, addicts, and just people that live in the streets in Buenos Aires, with a lot of social workers that are attending to them. And in the middle of this situation, these two kids that are not really kids appear there. That you can think why that happens, and there's lots of different reasons. But I always think, so are people going to kind of understand this kind of situation and how common it is? Because that's Buenos Aires. That's a whole place where there's lots of people living in the streets, and people that go every night to feed them and stuff. And it's not that lurid, it's not that grotesque when you read in Argentina, but because everybody saw that in, not just in Buenos Aires, but in Cordoba, in Rosario, in all of our big cities. So it's quite amazing, and it's quite fantastic that you can still, that you can get it like that. And it's awesome.
So good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next question. Can he? Oh, my. Is.
Thank you, Hola, Mariana. Apology. I'm like the opposite of the person that asked where I met you last year on the interview you did with Thomas Brewer. And I just jumped on the bandwagon. I couldn't believe it. Went to Argentina, bought all the books, and I'm the opposite. Like I hate the tension. Like it just kills you, especially when the monster is not yet there.
Yeah.
The short stories that don't have a very simple closure.
Yeah.
Being left with that tension, like, oh, it just haunts me. I said, no, I just want to know, like, finish, but like maybe it wasn't a clear resolution. My question to you is, what's your relationship with your own books? A lot of writers, sometimes they do say that once they birth, I guess, their own books, they maybe don't like them anymore, or they are representation of their past. Some others like love them. I would like to know, what's your relationship with the literature you already wrote?
Yeah. Well, first, the just tense and open endings is precisely to do that to you, just to leave you hanging. And because we were talking about reality first, I think in reality things don't really get solved. nothing has a pretty ending. So I try to I think in that way they're very realistic. Some things about I published my first book when I was 21. So my relationship with that first book, I can't even remember it really. But I'm fond of them because I think they represent the writer and in that case the girl that I was then. And I can see them growing. So I don't mind them. Now I'm re-releasing one in Spanish that was published in 2004. It's not horror, it's realistic. It's horrific, the things that happen, but they are not, And I had the opportunity to touch it, and I decided not to. Even there's things there that I wouldn't write again in the same way. But that was the book that I could write those days. And I don't think, I know there's many writers that go back and that's a never-ending process that can make you insane, basically. And to me, it's like rewriting the past, and I don't like it. So I prefer to move forward. I'm not really obsessed with the books. But many, the ones that I wrote when I was very young, I don't really remember. The first one, I don't really remember. I remember when it was re-released, they were asking me questions, and I was like, what's going on here? I don't have no idea. Especially about one character that I was absolutely convinced, but I can't express to you. I was certain that I had cut him. Like, I thought there was 3 protagonists. The girl and 2 guys. And then they were asking me all the time about this other one. I was like, why? And I was panicking. It's like, did they re-release a version, an older version that is kind of a disaster, that has this character that's never supposed to be there? But then I was thinking, but I wrote that book on a typewriter. So there's not a gigabyte of the book anywhere to copy it like that, an original thing. So and then I went to the old version, and I never got rid of him.
That's a great idea for a book, actually.
I know. It's a kind of a ghost. And I don't know, and I read it, and I say, but why are you here? Like, you're supposed to be, it's bad, this. But I never, that's kind of the way that I relate to them. It's there, and I respect what it was, I think.
Hi, Mariana.
Hi.
Very enlightening talks are very interesting. Compared to the other 2 people, I'm brand new to your work, but I'm very excited to dive in. I was really interested in hearing you talk about the body horror aspects of your work.
Yeah.
So I watch horror films, and I'm interested in the sort of like resurgence of modern horror in cinema with filmmakers like Juliette Corneau and Coralie Farja and Euros Glass. So my question is twofold. I am aware that some of your stories are being turned into a miniseries by Paulo Lorraine, which I'm very excited to see. I'm practically his ex filmmaker. So my question is, I'd love to hear your thoughts on body horror in cinema.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear how you feel about having your work adapted to the screen as well.
Yeah. My first introduction to body horror in film was Hellraiser by Clive Barker. And I always thought it was a very good introduction because to me it was the 80s. I saw it in the early 90s though, but it was the 80s. It was sex, it was AIDS, it was desire, it was pain. It was so. Clive Barker, the writer, used to be an escort. He used to prostitute himself. All that you could tell. You could see that you were watching something very intimate and kind of filthy in that movie. Even with because he represents desire as demons, as something that he's very addictive to, and he's very horrific. And that was really brave those days, coming from a gay man and in the middle of the AIDS crisis. So to me, that was this reading of body horror of that movie. I'm doing it now. But in those days, I could feel that I was watching something very, like that woman is bringing men into the house, killing them, and that blood is feeding her lover, her dead lover. This is very sick. The 80s were amazing. The 80s were amazing. But now you can't do that anymore. Now it's all too, I don't know. But and the other one that to me it's massive, it's David Cronenberg, especially The Fly. Because The Fly is like the sweet brother of Hellraiser. In a way, like it's a love story too. And his body's changing so much that she can't move with him. But and then there's a part of the body horror that I'm very interested too. It's in the interface, let's say, of body and machine, like Tetsuo, Akira, all that. Kind of was that excellent novel that then they made a movie with Scarlett Johansson. That what is she? She's a being from, I don't know, from outer space. And you can see at the end what she really is, what her body really is, masquerading as a beautiful woman. And I think it's very interesting to explore. And I think right now there's a bunch of very, very interesting movies. I haven't seen the late is if she was dead, the new Coralie Farget one, but I think the idea of people becoming ashes or dust, and that's the disease, I think is beautiful, and it's getting away from the gore. And I also think that these days in movies, it's a given that it's going to be body horror because we are so alienated from bodies in a way. Like our bodies is the hand and the head, right? Like this. And then we run, maybe. And so it's kind of that. And that's it. But we are very, I find that the body it's so present because it's being forgotten in a way. And at the same time, they're really pressuring us about changing our bodies, but it's not really changing our bodies, but changing the way our body looks. So I was watching, I'm going around, but it doesn't matter. You can ask me questions longer, it doesn't matter. This is very body horror, that you have to put on your face to sleep, that Kim Kardashian is selling. So you can't really sleep, right? You can't sleep anymore. Not even when you're sleeping, you can let your face fall a bit because you can't. But when you explore body horror in movies or in art in general, you're not talking about that. You're talking about what is going on. Not in the way I look at you or you look at me, but what's going on in the skin, how it feels, because that's what nobody knows. That's what you know. It's one thing, you look at me, but you don't know how I'm feeling. And I think body horror is trying to explore, of course it's film, so you can't feel it, but body horror is trying to explore that. Body horror is trying to say to you, this is how it feels. Do you feel this? And Titan, for example, makes an excellent point about gender and stuff, saying, do you see how it feels, how desire feels? You see how what changing feels like, the reaction that this produces, how a body is obsolete in that film, for example. So I think we started talking about the body, and we will be talking about the body a lot, because nowadays, when our bodies feel obsolete in many ways, they become more relevant than ever, because we are nothing without our bodies. Unfortunately, we can't put our brain in a computer like Philip Dick wants to, because the brain needs blood. So, and unless they make a machine that can, we don't have the, still the thing to do that. So that's why you have a movie that it shouldn't be a body horror movie, but it is, like Nosferatu, for example. There's no reason why, but well, yes, but the way that they've done it, the details in which they change it, the fact that the count is a corpse, it's a corpse, and it smells. You can smell the thing, and that I remember being in the movies and watching them. I love the movie, but watching that and saying, this guy is so well. Has such a great antenna with the times that was telling me is that, hello, death exists. And it's kind of like this. And remember that. Remember that you're in a body that is dying. Because to remember that means that you can understand a body that is aging, that you can take care of a body that is aging, that you are, I think we are, honestly, I say it with, I don't say it like I'm above everybody. I feel like that too. I feel like I'm very disconnected with my body in various ways. Like, for example, to tell you something kind of funny and stupid, I see some, I don't know, cellulite in my legs, and I think, well, it's going to go away, right? It's not going to go away. Where is it going to go away? Like, no, I have to do something. And I think I'm going to put a cream here, and it's not going to go away. It's just Sephora. Tries to make me believe that it's kind of some kind of alchemist cabinet or something like that, where you have a little cream for everything. You have one for the knee, one from the toe. It's insane. Like, we're really thinking about the body and all. And I have those products there. I throw them away every 3 months. But I have them there because I need them, all right? I need them. And this, yeah, that was long. But that's how important body horror is, and that's how important it is that there's so many people thinking about that, even when they fail. But it's very, to me, it's very, very prevalent, and we should talk about it a lot.
Hi, Mariana.
Hi.
Hi, sorry. Oh, should I stand up?
Yeah, but
So I was attracted to your work
on just knowing English and Spanish. And one of the most interesting things is still that the way your work is translated to English and how still beautifully written it is. And so I was wondering to what extent whether you're involved in the translations of your work. Because I still love reading, like, some people think, oh, I'm so horrified, it's just so scary. Meanwhile, I'm like, that sentence poetic. Like, I could still imagine it being the original translation of it in Spanish, even though I'm reading it.
Yeah. I'm very lucky with Megan McDowell, the translator, because she, of course, I don't read, I can't read the translations, most of them. I can read French and English, and that's it. And the other ones, I have to trust them. But the English one is important in many ways. And the English, the British and American publishers are very hands-on. Like in other countries, a translation can appear and they send you the book one day and it's like, oh, thanks. But in English, they're very hands-on, and you have to, and so I read them and we correct them together with Megan. I don't suggest a lot. Megan is like a very independent translator, and we talk a lot, but I really trust her before, because she's from the US. She's from Kentucky, but she lived a long time in Santiago de Chile. And I think there's something that she gets. Not just the language. It's not just that she is a very good translator and that she's she's very talented and she gets the intricacies of language in a very elegant way, but she knows the culture, the way we speak, the way that a word, what it means to say a certain word. I don't have to explain things to her. Basic things that are in the culture, I don't have to explain that to her. And that deep understanding, I think, makes her translations. She also translates Samantha Schrebling, for example. That is a very different writer from me, much more technical and different. And she's also in dark fiction, but in a very different way. And I read her translations of Samantha, and I can hear Samantha in another language, of course, but I can still hear. And I think it's the understanding she has of where we're coming from and how we use Spanish, because we don't use Spanish the same way that is used in any other country. And of course, not the same way they use in Spain, which is very different than the way it's used in Spain. The music is different, everything is different. So I think that I was very lucky with that, because she, there's something that's happening there that is not technical, that has to be with the way that she relates to the material and to what's going on beyond the words and the technical aspect. And I like her translations. I mean, I don't know, because that would be very vain. I don't know if she translates me. I don't know if I read myself there, because I have no idea how to think in those ways. But I read and I say, this is better written than my stuff. She has like, I don't know. I was very lucky with her, and she's a great person too. She's funny.
Hola, Mariana.
Hola.
So this question actually came up when I was talking to a friend.
Yeah.
So we've all read books in Spanish or original language, but now if I want to share those books with people of another country, English-speaking country,
Yeah.
what do you consider are the most important thing when you want to, from what you want to get in a translation? Because some writers have very particular words or phrases, and if you translate point by point, you might lose the message.
Yes.
So what is the thing that you would like, or what you like to keep in your translation?
I think what it's important to keep in the translations is a sense of play. It's a sense of humor. I think the stories are very dark, but they have a sense of humor, and some levity to them. And that's something that I know in my genre is difficult to keep, but you can use specific words, to make dark fiction sound very solemn, or there's something almost fun, a bit punk sometimes, a bit street there, that is something that to me is important to keep. I remember reading when I was really young, Ray Bradbury in Spanish, which is a writer that nobody talks about and I adore. I absolutely love him. And his translation, the first translation in Spanish was done in Argentina. Paco Porrua did it in Minotauro, and it was the Martian Chronicles, and Borges did the prologue. Was the first one. And I remember reading it when I was very young. I still couldn't read in English. I was studying English, but I couldn't read. And I got a sense of sadness and melancholia from that book that was so deep. I didn't care at all about the rockets. The fact that he called them rockets, cohetes in Spanish, he didn't even care. And Asimov was like with the numbers, and he was like, there's a rocket that goes to the moon. He doesn't care if the moon has oxygen or not. People breathe, whatever. He's not talking about that. He's talking about a lost world and the lost life and the lost youth or something. And you got that. And that was in the language. And when I read him in English, I got the same feeling. And I realized that the translation was quite free too, because that translator, Paco Porrua, was very disrespectful in the best way. But I understood that he got that. That was the important thing. That I was reading, tales about going to Mars, but I didn't care about that, and I was deeply moved about the loneliness of the whole thing, and the smallness of people, and and how, I don't know, Mars felt like Ohio, and I didn't know what Ohio was. I did not know it was a city, a state, or where it was, but it was sad, so not being there anymore. And that is what, I don't have that, but I do have the kind of edge, I think, to some characters that I don't feel, arrogant saying that, because I look for it. I look for them to be a bit like that. It helps with the horror to have someone that has, knowledge of how to deal with stuff that are a bit tough and a bit funny and a bit detached. And that I want to keep, and that's not something technical. That's something that is really a vibe that is going on there. And in English, I think it's there. And I don't know, in other language, I don't know what they are doing. To be honest, it could not be my book in other languages. I don't know. And there's so many nuances, but in English it is that, and I think Megan achieves that pretty good.
You might have time for just one more question, if it's a short one. Does anybody have a quick question? If not, yes. As I just stand my way back. $20.
Hi, Marita. I came to it in a bit of a different way, Rhea. In that I myself am a writer, and I was really drawn to just your mastery of a language. And I was wondering, did you always know you were going to be a writer? And if so, what's one piece of advice you would give to yourself from when you were first starting out in the industry, I guess?
No, I wrote my first book when I was in high school. I was 17. And why did I write it? I wrote it because we were like a gang of people. I had friends that were in bands. My boyfriend was in a band. Many of my friends were doing fanzines. I don't know, it was a very kind of underground. We were studying, some of us, we were going to study journalism because we wanted to do rock and roll journalism that I did for 10 years. I was a journalist of rock and roll bands. I interviewed everybody. And I wrote that because I didn't find fiction in Spanish that was talking about the issues that we were dealing with. That was mainly living fast, living in the streets, being young, being abandoned, being, it was, I remember reading Less Than Zero, the Bret Easton Ellis novel, and then Kathy Aker, because I could read a lot of English those days, and I was like, why is there nothing like this in Spanish? It's not that I wanted to be Bret Easton Ellis, but I just wrote it. I was in a drawer for the longest time until the sister of a friend of mine that was working in publishers mentioned that they were doing like a collection of books for young people. This is the 90s. They were not young adult fiction yet. And they didn't have an author that was young. They had stuff for young people, but not a young author. So she knew that I wrote this thing. She suggested me to bring it to the publishers, and it got published. So I really didn't. I was kind of forced to be a writer, and I liked it, but it took me 10 years to write the second novel because I didn't have the readings. I didn't know. I didn't knew. I mean, I was coming from a city that was an university city, a bit like a Argentinian Boston, let's say. It's called La Plata, and we were not related to any kind of writer. Everybody was in Buenos Aires. Like Argentina is a very has a big head. There is this city, and nothing happens in other cities. The only people that were related to literature in my city were poets that were high, and saying poetry at 3 a.m. in some dungeon. I don't know. It was not that. And the first book I released it through a big publisher. Planeta is kind of a corporation kind of thing. And I didn't like what was going around that. That's why sometimes I get young writers that are asking me how do you feel about your first, and it's kind of difficult to me to say it was awful. But it's very different now, the time now. Being 21 and writing about sex and drugs and being young, the way I was doing was horrendous in 1995. Everybody was like, how do you, on television, on the radio, how do you know that much about drugs? And what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to say? I was high at the moment that they were asking the question. I was terrified. I was like, I didn't want my parents to know. I didn't want to go to jail. I wanted to have a job. I didn't have any money. It was awful. And it was a lot about the way it looked and stuff. So it took me 10 years to do another one, and those 10 years I worked as a journalist. And with my second book, I really realized that I loved it. And that was the way I could express myself. Not just with writing, because I was writing as a journalist, but what I had to say that is very different to have the ability to write. That you can use it as a job. But this is not a job. This is work, but it's not a job. And it can lead you nowhere very easily. In fact, the first book of mine that kind of sold and was translated was Things We Lost in the Fire, that is from 2016. So it's more than exactly 20 years after the first one. So my advice is, I have no idea. Just do it. And if you like it, and what I do advise, but as a personal thing, not as a writer, is like really, I only write what I like. I don't write anything that I don't like. Even when I make a mistake, even if I'm writing something right now, for example, I'm writing a novel, and I think some things are kind of repetitive, and I'm like, whatever, maybe this is the novel you have to write now, and I like it. Maybe these are the things that obsess you. Maybe you don't have that many themes. I mean, it doesn't matter. And that's because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of hours, it's a lot of time. It should be a joy. If with all that it's not a joy, it doesn't make any sense, because there's lots of books. And if I start reading now that book there, and I will die before I go downstairs. And so I think to share something of yours that maybe it's like 2 hours in the work and nobody pays attention to it, and then it gets reviewed with 2 paragraphs, and it's like, well, it's me. At least you have to enjoy the process, because that happens. You should read the reviews of The Dangers of Smoking in Bed. I have the fortune that I'm not I'm very distracted, they can tell you. And I can't remember names of people. So I can't remember the name of the guy that did a review for the biggest paper in Argentina. It's called La Nación. But I really wanted to give him a call when that book was nominated by the booker, because he said, "You're wrong. You were wrong. We're mean." He was very mean. But then people liked the book. But you can never shake the insecurity, because it was like, so people like it, but people like a lot of garbage, right? I like a lot of garbage, a lot of bad stuff. So you're never sure. So it has so many insecurities, so many people dismissing it, so many people not reading it, so many people not getting it, that my only advice is enjoy it, have fun with it. Share it with your friends, take suggestions, do fan fiction, I don't know. But yeah, it should be, for the writer, it should be like that, because otherwise it's not a fun ride. It is, but not the way that people expect that it's going to be a fun ride. Most of the time it's people asking you. In my case, it's people. I don't want to be ungrateful. I've been very, very lucky as a writer, because most writers are not. But most of my time is 9 months writing and 3 months having some fun, traveling, talking about it. But it's 9 months of going to bed every night thinking, this is garbage, this book is garbage, and I have to burn it. I burned one. That's a nice story.
Thank you so much, Fabricio, for your amazing questions. And I just wanted to say
Thank you.
to Mariana for, of course, giving us the delights and the deliciousness of the experience of reading your books, as well as the horror. What a beautiful paradox it might be. And for sharing with us your reflections and your experience of writing, and some words of wisdom as well for budding writers as well. Let us join now, please, thanking Fabricio.
Thank you.